This week's episode is brought to you by Campaign Refinery, an amazing new email marketing automation tool. Look, in the world of digital marketing, there's a lot to keep track of. We all know this. As much as we're in love with social media and the power of social conversation here at Social Inc. and on the All About Digital Marketing podcast, we are well aware at just how powerful email marketing can be. Email marketing is not dead. In fact, it's never been more important to help you leverage your presence everywhere else into the one channel that you'll own, regardless of what changes Facebook, Twitter, or any other platform makes in the future. I've known the founder, Travis Ketchum, for years, and he's been a past guest on the podcast, episode 15 if you want to listen to it. I've personally used his other products before, and they've been fantastic. The amount of thought that he's put into each and every one of what he's created has been incredible. I'd highly encourage you to try their free 14-day trial at campaignrefinery.com to see what world-class email marketing automation can do for you and your business. Massive thank you to Travis and Campaign Refinery for their support of the All About Digital Marketing show. Welcome to the All About Digital Marketing podcast, the show all about
digital marketing.
Digital marketing.
Digital marketing.
Digital marketing.
Brought to you by Social Inc., a digital marketing agency specializing in social media and content marketing for brave brands and forward-thinking SMEs. I'm your host, Chris Bruno, and as always, we're here to bring you the most actionable tips, tricks, tools, and insights to help you achieve more when it comes to your digital marketing. Subscribe to the show and be sure to share with a friend if you found something useful or interesting. You can find all the show notes and more information on www.allaboutdigitalmarketing.co.uk. Bryan, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
My pleasure. Great to be here.
So I'm really looking forward to this, Bryan. But for everyone here who doesn't know you yet, can you give them a little bit of your story and what you're currently doing?
Yeah. So my name's Bryan Clayton. I'm CEO of Greenpal, which in one sentence is Uber for lawn mowing. So anyone that needs to have their lawn mowed, they just use our app or website and they can find a good lawn care service in their neighborhood in 60 seconds, hire them and just set it up for the rest of the lawn mowing season. And it just happens magically in the background. Before that, I had a traditional landscaping business that I started when I was 18 years old. Grew that from just myself and a push mower to over 150 employees and $10 million a year in revenue. In 2013, that company was acquired by one of the largest landscaping companies in the United States. And after that, I kind of retired and took some time off, got bored, and decided to start Greenpal. And here we are 7 years later. Greenpal is in every state in the United States and soon to be Canada. Over 200,000 active customers. And this year we're going to surpass $20 million in GMV.
So I absolutely love this because this is literally your first business, but 2.0, right?
Yes, my entire life I've been in the lawn mowing business. I've never had a boss. I've always worked for myself in this industry, so I know it well.
I love that. And I also really like the fact that you can describe the company in that one sentence, right? Uber for lawnmowers. I think that's absolutely huge because it's so powerful, right? In less than 30 seconds, you can tell people exactly what it is, and in their heads, they've understood.
Sadly, I think our attention spans are getting less and less every year. And so I think you have to really, if you're an entrepreneur, you have to be able to describe what you do succinctly, very quickly, or else people get bored.
I agree. Long live TikTok and 30-second
right.
30-second clips. Right, well, now we're showing our age, Bryan, so this is a bad thing. Let's talk a little bit about actually your first business, if that's all right with you, and then we'll come on to Greenpal. But
right on.
For everyone that's listening, building a business is hard. We all know that. I know that. You know that. But a lot of people can sometimes not realize just the extent of what the problems that you face or the challenges that you might have to overcome. What are some of the things that you really managed to kind of conquer that helped you to grow that business from just you to over 150 employees?
Yeah. So for me, what I have come to find out 20 years of building and selling companies is that my businesses are my vehicle for my own personal development. they always require more of me than I am capable of doing. So just even going back to the late 90s when I was starting my first business, I didn't know how to hire employees. I didn't know how to be an effective manager. I didn't know how to be a good leader. And over many years of trial and error of doing everything the wrong way, I figured out how to do things the right way and how to seek out mentors, how to seek out resources, things like this podcast, and how to learn and grow myself as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a leader, little by little, through trial and error, year over year, and I got pretty good at it after a while. Now, if I had to do it all over again, I could have done in what took me 15 years, probably 3. But just learning how to do these things while you're in the trenches is something that, looking back, my business has always extracted that from me, and I'm grateful for that. So, I encourage other business owners and entrepreneurs to look at their business that way, especially when it's hard, like times like right now. That look, this isn't happening to you; it's happening for you. As a business owner, you're growing through these experiences, guiding your business and growing and keeping it alive. I'm just looking back. I'm grateful for that.
I think that's amazing. And for reference, for everyone listening, we're recording this on the 15th of July, 2020. Obviously, this year has been crazy. No one saw what was currently happening coming in any way, shape, or form. And I think that, like you mentioned there, right, it's a challenge to yourself to grow and to be able to grow with these challenges at the same time. Like you mentioned, learning all those different elements of running a business. The best way to learn anything, I've always found anyway, is to pretty much get your hands dirty and to go and do it. So being able to take that on as a positive rather than a negative, right? A challenge can help you to grow and can help you to overcome it, learn something new, and to build from that. And I think that's absolutely huge and really powerful.
Absolutely. The marketplace is just relentless with candid, real feedback. And there's nothing more humbling than trying to start a business from scratch, and trying to grow it and trying to bring it to life. And so for me, it's just helped me shape me as a person, as who I am. I'm more self-aware. I'm more open to feedback. I'm just more of a creative person because of my companies.
I think that's fantastic. I was talking to somebody the other day, actually a guest off the podcast on my LinkedIn. We were having a conversation going back and forth online. And basically he said something along the lines of, yeah, well, if it was easy, everyone would be a millionaire and have a six pack.
Absolutely. Isn't that so true?
And I thought that was a really good way of looking at it, right? Because it's not just running a business, it's any aspect. If you want to learn to play the piano, if you want to get healthy, if you want to run a marathon, it doesn't matter, right? You want to bench 400 pounds or 200 kilos. All of these things take a ton of training, effort, repeated actions to try and make sure that you're learning and that you're getting better every day. And I think that's something
put in the work.
Absolutely, man. You've got to put in the work. So talk to me a little bit about the marketing. When you first started your business, obviously, I can't remember if you said 1990.
1998 was
98.
Was when I really got rolling with my first lawn mowing business. Back then, it was all hand-to-hand combat, flyers, word of mouth, just talking to people. And in many ways, it kind of still is that way. But back then, we didn't have digital marketing. We barely had the internet, but we didn't really have Google or Facebook or any of these means to digitally market your small business. So it was really just guerrilla marketing, trying to get one customer at a time. And I grew that business from doing that and just being reliable and delivering a quality service. Had I had to do it all again today, I could do it a lot quicker because I could run things like Facebook campaigns and I could do things like local search engine optimization. But back then it was really hard and in many ways a lot harder than it is today. It's probably easier to start a small business and grow it today than it ever has been because you have easier, more efficient ways to reach your target clientele.
I think this is an awesome lesson, though, for a lot of people to learn as well, right? It is, even with the digital channels, even with the online, there's a couple of things that you mentioned there, right? The hand-to-hand combat. My business partner uses that exact phrase in terms of online outreach. It is hand-to-hand combat. It is one by one. You're having these individual conversations. The only thing that's changed is you're not going knocking on doors, right, in everyone's neighborhood, trying to figure out who's going to be your next customer. You can do all that from the comfort of your own home or office or anywhere. But the second thing is exactly what you mentioned afterwards, providing a reliable and great service. right? That is the number one key to any business succeeding and growing. If you're doing a mediocre, half-assed job, the chances are people aren't going to talk about you, whether it's online or offline. They're not going to necessarily recommend you. You think about the products that you love, whether it be a car like a Tesla, and you see their community, people love them, great quality vehicle. It's working in all sorts of ways that other people haven't managed to figure out yet. But again, it gets people really talking about that brand in a particularly positive way. And I think that's something that nowadays with online, people kind of forget, and they think, well, I've got access to this huge audience. So maybe I don't need to necessarily just concentrate and worry about that one customer, or maybe I don't have to go all the way to really doing something that's incredibly beneficial for them. And I think that's a real shame.
Oh man, I mean, so true. It's a fundamental principle of business that will never change. And it gets really kind of distorted, especially in the tech startup scene where new products are being invented and new things are being tried, and they call it product market fit, which means, are you building a product or service that people want to use, that is solving a problem for them, that they find delightful, that they want to keep using. And that's true whether you're inventing something new or you're starting a traditional business like I had. You have to have a product that people love to use, that they're going to keep coming back to. If not, all the marketing in the world won't fix it. And we see this happen a lot in tech startups where people will pour millions of dollars of marketing and distribution onto a bad product. And that is like just pouring gasoline onto wet leaves. It's like attaching rocket boosters onto the side of a barn. It just blows apart. You can't distribute a product that's a piece of crap. And as simple as that sounds, there's a lot of smart people that have crashed billions of dollars into the ground, not understanding that simple thing of, it's not ready to be marketed. You can't sprinkle marketing on top if you have a bad product or service.
The old analogy was always, you can sell a bad product once. And the idea of that was, right, you can get those people in that say, I'll give it a try. They see how bad it is, or how bad it tastes, or how bad it looks, or how bad it works, whatever. And then that's it, right? You're not going to get that second sale. You're not going to get a referral. They're not going to keep being loyal customers. And I think that's something that's hugely important. So fast forward from sort of 1998, and then we get to kind of the 2007, 2008. And by this point, Facebook's starting to open up. Google's already around and kind of making its mark. Did you yourself find yourself in that kind of transitionary period of going, right, actually, no, to keep growing the business, we need to start marketing more online?
Yeah, you nailed it. So along about 2002 was when I became aware of Google pay-per-click and then SEO as a channel to get new customers. And I was lucky because I was only 21 or 22 at the time, and my competitors were all in their 30s and 40s. So I was able to discover this internet thing as a means to grow my little business a lot quicker than they were. And throughout the 2000s, that was a major competitive advantage for my business. We were flat out the best online marketed landscaping business in the state of Tennessee. We had a better website. We had better search engine ads. We ranked better than everybody else. We understood back in those days just simple inbound marketing, developing blog content and bringing eyeballs to our website, and then converting those into calls and converting those into sales. It was a never-ending river of business that flowed to us irrationally. So we had competitors that were bigger than us, that quite frankly at times were better than us, but we got those calls before they did because we had that competitive advantage. We outmarketed them digitally because they hadn't stumbled upon this. Now that's probably very different, but I think there's still lessons to be learned. If you're in the home remodeling space, if you're in the home construction space, or if you own a massage parlor or whatever, you probably can outcompete at a local level and just out hustle your competitors in digital marketing and make that your competitive advantage. I think there's still opportunity there. And it certainly worked for me building and growing and selling my first business.
I think that's really important, right? Because we're going to have at least 2 or 3 listeners right now that are going to be sat there thinking, yeah, but that was great because it was the early 2000s. Today, it's just not the same. But I think something that's really important that you mentioned there was the localized, right? because now we can get this down to really localized marketing. We can really specifically go after a particular marketplace by, even down to postcode or zip code.
Absolutely.
So there's a real ability to maximize. And I think the channels and the platforms that are available, I talk to way too many people, and I'd love to get your feedback on this as well, but they're looking for that shiny tool or the magic button that they have to press that suddenly opens the floodgates to leads. And they're missing the fact that actually it's more about, consistently turning up on the platforms where people are. So, things like Facebook, the amount of clients I've had talk to me and say, oh, Facebook's dead, right? No one's using it. Or the kids are all on TikTok, or before that it was Snapchat or whatever else. And I try to explain to people, yeah, but who's your demographic? Who are the people with money, right? Because teenagers are great if you're trying to sell them sneakers that their parents are going to go buy. But actually outside of that, they're not the ones, for example, to take your business. They're not the ones that organize a landscaper to come cut the lawn, right?
Exactly. It's and Facebook is still very much alive. We use the hell out of it for acquisition at Greenpal. But I can understand why people might think that it's not, and might think that they need to jump onto the new thing, when in fact you don't really have to. There's so much opportunity just doing what works already, but the key is actually doing it. And that could mean anything. Like let's say you're like a kitchen remodeler in Chicago or something like that. If you have the best content around that, and you're willing to put that out onto Facebook, onto Instagram, onto Snapchat, and you're just better positioned and are actually adding value that people want to see, those before and after pictures, and maybe there's something different that you do, or there's a package that you have that other competitors don't have, and you're showcasing that and people want to consume that, it will pay dividends. But it's adding value before taking anything.
And I think that's really big, right? So I'm usually based in just south of London. Met some friends, and the husband of the relationship basically runs exactly that, a business that does all carpentry, joinery, kitchen remodels and stuff like that. He is absolutely crushing it with Instagram. And basically any job site they go on, he's got the before pictures. He'll take pictures during, he'll show the works as they're currently being done. He'll then take pictures of finished products, like everything installed and how it looks at the end. And the amount of traction he gets from that and the amount of leads it generates is absolutely mind-boggling, right? The guy is constantly busy. And there's so many people that don't realize that everyone's kind of going for, what if we could be the next unicorn? But actually, a successful business isn't a unicorn, right? There's a ton of companies out there that make millions of pounds or dollars and that aren't unicorn status, but they're hugely successful, localized businesses. And this is what they do.
Absolutely. I mean, that's so true. We oftentimes read the headlines about so-and-so raised 100 million or sold for $1 billion. And what we forget is that there's a lot of money to be made in the traditional businesses, especially if you're able to be part carpenter, part digital marketer. And I think any local business, doesn't matter what space you're in, if you're willing to dedicate a third of your week to digital marketing, whether it be content creation, whether it be making your website is the best in the market, or having some online ordering aspect of it, I think you can just run circles around your competition still in 2020.
I agree. And I think this is why it's so important, right? This is part of the reason why we created the podcast. We wanted to just tell people and again, hammer home the message. But what I really like is having a guest on who basically says the exact same thing as we do. How more powerful is that? It can't get more powerful than that, than having other people come in and explain that. And I think I'd love to ask you a little bit about that. So the idea for you was that third of your week spent, would you say it was as much of that spent on the marketing aspect and making sure that you were always the leader in that space because of what you were doing?
Yeah, then and now. And I had to make a transition from a blue collar style entrepreneur to a 100% tech entrepreneur when I sold my last business and started Greenpal. So I get it. I get how there's a million different things that you have to do as a business owner just to keep the lights on. And the last thing on your mind is what blog you're going to write that week, or what customer interview you're going to do and videotape, or what project you're going to showcase, package up, make look pretty, and push that out. I get it. That's the last thing on your mind because so-and-so, let's say so-and-so got a DUI last night, and then guess what? They're out of work for a week. Or so-and-so is going through a divorce and they're going through a tough time. And so now you're down a key critical employee. These things happen. And so you're trying to like triage your day just to keep the lights on. I understand that. But if you can focus on either delegating this stuff and being consistent with it, it will pay dividends. There's a big difference between being on your business and being in your business. And so a lot of times as small business owners, we're just dominated by being in our business. And that means just the day-to-day minutia of running the business and making sure that the trains show up on time. But you really have to carve out time to be on your business. That relates to like developing systems around making it run smoother so you can then free up more time. It's stuff like what we're talking about right now, being the best marketed business in your city, in your town. That's being on your business. And it's those high leverage activities that's going to make you the market leader, that's going to make you more money, and really, as a business owner, improve your life. If you can spend half your time on your business and half your time in your business, it will make you a happier business owner.
Less of the fighting fires and more of the planning.
Exactly. And it's so hard to do that. We just want to go put the fire out, but we really don't want to sit there and think for 3 hours as to what caused the fire and developing a system to prevent that from ever happening again.
I think that is the real crux of this. And we talk about it a lot. So when we're meeting new clients or we're having conversations online and people will be like that, yeah, what we want to do is X, Y, Z. So it'll be everything from, website content, search media. We want ads, we want Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, one thing like that. And you're like that, right. So before we go into this, what are the resources and what are the systems in place? And they're like that. Right. Okay, well, very little. And then invariably I say, okay, cool. So explain to me your strategy, what the idea is behind this. Okay, right. And invariably what we realize is we come all the way back and we keep asking questions and we'll eventually get to the point of, right, who are you actually trying to attract as a customer? And why do they want to use you? What pain are you solving? What problem are you solving? What solution do you have that makes this really important? What's your why as a company? And invariably, absolutely, like you said, and it really upsets me because what you've said is so right. People spend 99.9% of their time in the business and they do very little work on the business, which is really funny because most of them, before they start on day one, they spend months, right, thinking about their business plan and everything else. And the best laid plans go out the window on day one as you open the doors and fires start popping up everywhere because you can never see everything in advance. You're always going to miss something.
Absolutely, man. You nailed it. Like, when you're first getting started, get in the trenches and get going. But as you get something rolling, you need to take a step back and get back on it. And it's like you said, okay, if I drive you 100 phone calls this week, what are you going to do with those? And moreover, if a customer comes to your website or calls your office, you need to be thinking about this question. If I'm your ideal prospect, why would I do business with you over your competitors? And if you can't answer that question, and if you can't really understand what your value proposition is, you got to fix that before you do anything with any marketing at any level.
And I think we talk about a lot with the, I don't know if you've read Simon Sinek's Start With Why.
Yes, I love that book.
And I recommend it to pretty much every business that I meet and talk to when I can see that there's a clear sort of gap and they haven't read it. And I'm like that, look, just, go away this weekend, read it, have a think, and then come back and let's talk next week. Invariably, that's a really good way for me to judge what sort of people they are and how much we want to work with them as well. But
oh man, that's beautiful. That's a great way to be effective, be an effective agency for them to partner with, because if they're not successful, you're not successful.
And that's it, right? So you end up basically having a bad reputation because they aren't making the results that they imagine that they deserve. And actually you're like that. Well, if we get back to the beginning, you can't even tell me who your audience persona is, let alone why you, let alone what makes your offering unique or what makes it important and different and better. So all of these questions are something that's really hard I find anyway, the clients find it really hard to dig deep and to get through their own barriers or anything that's stopping them to kind of break that down. So I was wondering did you have any advice after having started a few companies now? What sort of ways have you found to really help you dig deep and to really kind of identify that why?
Yeah, why we do what we do. For me, running my first business, it was our family, our team. what we were doing to improve the lives of our staff and the prosperity of the business funneling back into that. That drove everything internally from the inside out. So we had a lot of immigrant workers from Central America, and we would give interest-free loans for anybody that had a project they wanted to do back home or here. Maybe they wanted to buy a new car. Maybe they wanted to put a kid through school. We had one guy that built a little convenience store back in Guatemala. We had another guy that built a little soccer arena in Mexico. So we would really focus on, okay, the company's winning. We have X number of dollars allocated towards this little program. Every month we would have a little committee that would look at the proposals, and we would give these loans out interest-free to our staff. And then we would celebrate those during our all hands meetings. And it became this really fun way of, okay, this is why we're doing what we're doing. When the company wins, we win. All of our people win. And that solved all of our quality issues. That solved all of our buy-in. That solved all of our no-call, no-show problems with laborers. That really gave us a strong foundation to then go out into the marketplace and sell a quality service, a consistent service that our clients didn't have to worry about. And that was a unique thing that we did that worked for us. And here we are, fast forward now to my second business. I'm applying these same lessons learned with, okay, now it's a little different. The lawn mowing services that use our platform are growing. They're doubling their business in the first year of using it. We then take those stories and we interview those folks. We develop case studies around them, and then we show them to our team here. And we say, look, here's a single mom in Atlanta that is using Greenpal, and she gained 30 customers in 2 months, and now she's getting ready to buy a new lawnmower. Like, really focusing on, you can always find it at what level the business is actually improving the lives of the users, the customers, or the internal team, and then funneling that back into the mission of the business. For me, has been an effective way to develop like a durable culture and a durable competitive advantage.
I think that's awesome, and super powerful, right? The buy-in aspect of everybody being on the same page from the bottom all the way to the top is just epic. The power that has to drive an organization forward, and something that a lot of people don't realize. They'll complain if they're too small. I don't have the resources of the bigger companies or anything else. But the nice thing about being in those early stages and having a small team is that actually getting that buy-in, getting that culture around your company, and being agile and nimble enough to make changes to make that buy-in happen is just 100x what any big company can ever do.
Absolutely. That's your competitive advantage, to out-recruit the big companies and to keep your people longer. And it's that feels better. It's more fun to do it that way, but that's also your competitive advantage in the marketplace. You can develop a more consistent service, because maybe if you're in the HVAC air conditioning business, maybe it's that service tech is the same service tech that showed up last year, because you keep your service techs longer because you actually care about their kid that's in college, and you actually care about the things that's going on in their life, and you're looking for ways to improve their livelihood. So then they care about your business, and so then they care about your customers, and then your customers feel that, and they stick around and they tell other people. Whereas, one of the bigger competitors in your space might have 400 service techs, and it's a different tech every time. But you can outcompete them because you have that personal relationship, and then you figure out ways to scale that to 10, 20, 100 people. And you can still maintain that as your business grows if you do it right in the early stages.
I think that's huge. Okay, so let's fast forward then. Now we're into Greenpal, and you're launching this well and truly in the digital marketing age.
Right.
Talk to me a little bit about launch. How did you guys get started, and what were the sort of things that you did for the marketing aspects to try and gain those crucial first users?
Yeah, great question. So luckily this time around, I had access to books, podcasts, YouTube videos, Udemy courses, you name it, to learn how to do this stuff. In the late 90s, that stuff didn't exist. So you kind of had to do it the wrong way and just kind of learn as you went. But now I was able to train myself and my two co-founders the same on, okay, how do we design software? How do we build software? And how do we execute the building of a digital product? Because it's a little different. We're doing something that's never been done before. There is no push a button, get your lawn mowed that exists. And we're building that. And so it's a little different than building a traditional blue collar business, because at least there's some known playbook that you can execute well and better than your competitors. This is different. You have to do that plus kind of invent it as you go. And one thing that we learned early on, we read a book called The Startup Owner's Manual by an author named Steve Blank. And one of the core tenets of that book is, he says, get out of the building. And as simple as that sounds, the concept is you have to get out of the building, you have to get out of the office, and you have to go talk to your users, talk to your customers. Simple philosophy, but 9 out of 10 business owners don't do it. And so when we launched the first version in the summer of 2013, it was a total abysmal failure, but we were able to get 20, 30 users to actually meet with us. And we met with them at coffee shops, took them out to dinner, sat with them on their back porch, and asked them face to face, what was it that our product did for you that delighted you, and where did it let you down? And just that simple question, we were able to understand, okay, this is the problem we're actually solving, and this is where we're screwing up. And we came to understand, we thought that we were selling a cheaper way to get your lawn mowing done. We thought it was all about price, and if we can deliver you back 5 quotes in 60 seconds, that you can find the cheapest lawn mowing service, and then you'll be a happy user. And what we actually found was, it wasn't the cheapest that our users were looking for. They needed it done today. They needed it done now. It was actually speed. It was speed around getting them faster quotes. It was speed around, if they hire a lawn mowing service, knowing that that guy or gal will show up, was the actual pain that we were solving. Because when they stumbled onto Greenpal, the lawn was already 1 foot, 2 foot, sometimes 3 feet tall. And they needed somebody to get that grass short. And that was the problem we were solving. We didn't know that. We assumed it was all about price, and our marketing messages were oriented around that. But we were able to after only about 5 or 10 or 20 interviews, we were able to really discern, no, the value proposition is push a button, get it done, and know that it's going to get done today. Knowing that in the early days, we were able to retool and rebuild the product around, okay, we have to reduce the cycle time around how long it takes to get prices, and we have to make sure that that lawn mowing service shows up on the day that they're scheduled. And those were the problems we solved for in the first 3 years, making sure that the product does those things reliably. Had we not gotten out of the building and met with our users, we would have never known that.
I think it's really interesting because feedback loops today are huge, right? We can get them almost instantaneous, whether it be online, social media, comments, reviews, everything.
Right.
But I find that a lot of, especially younger startup founders, no offense, I'm not being ageist before anyone emails me harassment. But the idea being, they've got it in their minds that they want to build X. And invariably when we're having conversations, right, we'll ask, well, what do your clients say? What do the people that have seen the MVP say? What does everybody other than your mum and dad say about the product?
Right.
And that initial feedback, especially in the early days, is just a huge, huge learning curve that you can speed up. And like you said, right, within 20 interviews of having those conversations with real people, real users, figuring out what it was that they did or didn't like, you're able to spin the business. And suddenly, I'm guessing, once you changed that kind of messaging, you saw that the user numbers started to jump pretty quickly.
Absolutely. And not only just layering the marketing on top to be congruent with that value proposition, but also fixing the problems internally in the product. A lot of times good marketing is not just the creative. It's not just how the web page, homepage looks. It's actually baked internally into the product. The best marketing and the best growth for your product comes internally inside whatever the product or service is doing to market itself as it goes. And because we were able to orient the whole business around speed and not necessarily price. Yeah, price is important, but it's not the primary driver of value proposition. Speed is still, to this day, it is the thing that has propelled us forward, and not just changing the headline on the homepage. It's actually fixing whatever the product is.
I think that's huge. And again, I'd ask a couple of questions to keep digging into this, because I think for anyone out there, the marketing is what you mentioned, right? It's the next level above and beyond. And often people overlook necessarily the UI, the UX as being, well, it's just odds and sods and we'll move those things around. But what you mentioned there was, critically, does the app, does the system actually embed what it is that you're trying to solve as that main key criteria? And I think that's something that can be quite hard. And again, I think we come back to our very beginning of this conversation, right? Where we say you're too busy working in the business to work on the business. And these sorts of conversations with potential users or users who have tried it, that's what gives you that helicopter view of your business. And you go, shit, I've just realized we're going down the wrong route, right? We've focused too much on price point, and actually it turns out it's about speed. So it allows you to see that and then to kind of maneuver and change and shift your direction to make sure that you're actually appealing to more customers, which is what you're looking for.
Absolutely. And as the CEO or business owner, you're the sole person responsible for this. You can't delegate these things. I mean, yeah, it's good to work with a digital marketing agency after you already know all of the answers to these other questions, because then they can really accelerate your efforts. But you have to internalize whatever that is that what the value proposition is, and make sure that your product or service is delivering that. That has to be solved for first. And a lot of times business owners skip that. And to your point, luckily we have feedback loops at our fingertips at all times. And a lot of entrepreneurs shy away from that because it's painful. They've spent a year, 2 years, 3 years building whatever it is they had in their head that should exist. And then come to find out the baby's ugly. And it's just painful to hear that. And it's painful to change course. But I'm not saying you have to bend every time somebody gives you some negative feedback. But when you consistently hear the same things over and over and over again, you have to really solve what the problem is at the core level. In the early days of Greenpal, our product was such a piece of crap, but we at least had intercom live chat in the website and in the app at all times. And so effectively, our product was a piece of crap, but at least you had intercom to talk to me or one of my co-founders, and we would solve whatever your problem is. So it could be, in the early days, it was 100 times a day. My lawn mowing service didn't show up. Well, at least we now know, so then I can call your lawn mowing service, figure out why he didn't show up, and then ask ourselves why 5 times. Why didn't the guy show up? Well, because his schedule was full. Well, why didn't we know his schedule was full? Well, because we don't have insight into his schedule. Why don't we have insight into his schedule? It's because, well, he's not willing to give that because you're not delivering him enough business. Okay, how much business do we need to deliver him? He needs 10 yards a week. Okay, now we understand the problem is we are not making material impact into the service provider's life. Therefore, we cannot deliver that reliable service to the homeowner. Now we at least know what the problem is. And going through that relentlessly over and over and over again for years and years and years, now we have the push a button, get the lawn mowing service done. And none of that would have happened had we had not had intercom live chat embedded at every screen in every platform that our product existed. And not only that, it pings us on our mobile phones. So that means 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, any of our users can get a hold of anybody on the founding team. And that simple feedback loop is all the reason why we're successful today.
I think that's huge. And I was talking just a couple of weeks ago to Dione from another company. Basically, her husband and herself, they started this online SaaS business. And one thing that really stuck with me, she said, every new employee has to do a minimum term on the customer services desk.
Absolutely.
And I was like, that's just so powerful, right? You're completely getting to grips with who the customers are. You're understanding what they are, why they're using the product. You're understanding the pain points. And literally, she was saying, I don't care if they're in marketing, finance, or anything else. You've got to spend some time on customer services desk. And it's that really helps them to drive their business forward. And she said that for the first year, so they're actually based in Australia. And in their first year, they got a chance to be on AppSumo. So that got them a ton of clients really quickly. Not a huge amount of revenue, but a ton of clients very, very quickly. And she said, she would basically wake up, not unlike now that she's had a child, wake up every couple of hours in the middle of the night down in Australia to be able to take calls and to deal with things on the customer services side at the early stages of their business, just to make sure that they were understanding what the issues were and what they needed to fix.
Absolutely. When you're self-funded or bootstrapped, whatever you want to call it, focusing on the few things that matter is your only shot at success. And you can only focus on one or two things at a time. And when you have that never-ending stream of user feedback at your fingertips at all times and you're acting on it, you'll never wonder as to what it is you have to do that week. You understand what the important things are very succinctly because you're hearing it 5 times a day from upset users. And then you solve that problem, and then you work on the next problem, and then that just starts to compound. When we first started, we ran our first year, and I think at the end of the year we had 45 customers, and half of them were friends and family. And even then, I think we got more tickets in a day in terms of unhappy users than we do now with 200,000. And so it just gets better and better and better. It's like a snowball. And if you are constantly acting on that user feedback, and not only that, but you have the infrastructure to receive it, internalize it, and act on it, then you start to develop this little machine where you get better and better and better. I think the Japanese call it Kaizen. It's just relentless improvement. And using the customer feedback to drive that is just a recipe for success.
Massively agree with you. And big ups to your family and friends for using those support tickets as well, because there's nothing quite like true and real feedback. It can sometimes be sugar-coated, right, when we have loved ones or friends and family around us. But actually, we were talking to another guest again on the SaaS side of things, and he said, they've changed their customer services now by taking on board pretty much everything, stacking things up to figure out what the major issues were, batching everything together to then understand what the real, recurring problems were. And then what they did with that is actually they started using those bits of information that they gathered to put overlays in the right places to help users through those moments where people were struggling. And
Right.
what they've ended up doing is they've gone from getting, thousands of emails on a weekly basis. It's a fairly successful SaaS business, but they've managed to take that and shift it now to it's basically, half a day, twice a week. That's what they do to look after, to look through any customer services kind of things. So literally addressing the problems and then bringing it into the platform itself to make sure that
Absolutely.
user experience is the best thing possible.
Yeah, and at the time you're pissed off. You're as a business owner, you're pissed off. What does this person want? What now? And the reality is the fact that path is difficult is of value to you. The fact that you are hearing that is of value to you because that's how you create a differentiated product that has durability because you can use that feedback to then create something that actually solves your customers and your users' problems. And that's how you create a competitive advantage.
Couldn't agree more. And for everyone listening, don't be afraid to ask your clients, even if they're current clients, right? What are we doing well? What could we do better?
Right.
And I think this is something that people forget, right? Depending on what sort of character they have. But, I talk to most of my clients. They all pretty much have access to us through WhatsApp. And so we've got our usual channels online for communications and emails and everything else. But if there's an issue, I want you to WhatsApp me. I want you to get in touch with me as quickly as possible. I want to understand what the issue is and I want to be able to resolve it.
Exactly.
Because that to me is the biggest learning curve. Again, if I can avoid those things or like you mentioned, put in a system in place to make sure that doesn't happen again, making sure that we're more transparent about something or whatever it might be. But anything like that, I want to try and understand. And I want to make sure that one, I address it for their point of view so that they stay with us. And, we've got clients that have been with us since 2011, 2012, and that still choose to use us today. And I think that says a lot about the way we work and how we try and treat our customers and how we kind of build those relationships. But a lot of people are too quick to sort of go, they don't get it. They don't understand how to use the platform or they don't really understand what we're trying to do. And I think that can be a real slippery slope for businesses, especially in those early days.
Yeah, in the early days, it's table stakes to be successful, and you have to just do that or else you won't get from 0 to 1. I think the slippery slope is once a business owner, and I've been guilty of this, has had a degree of success. Let's say you've got a nice, comfortable lifestyle business, and you're doing pretty good. You're not doing as well as you want to, but you're doing pretty good. Then you're you're really not as open to the feedback as you should be, because it's like, oh no, we're fine. Success is a bad teacher. And if you have a kind of successful business, then you're going to be not as open to the feedback as you are in the early days. I think one of the key differentiators for building a really dominating, successful business is to carry that ethos through all the way, as long as you own and manage and run that company.
A tough challenge for a lot of us.
Absolutely. And the caveat is, you're still going to have to fire some customers. Some customers just aren't a good fit. But if you're hearing consistently the same style of feedback, the same type of feedback, that's the stuff you need to act on. But I'm not here to tell you that the customer is always right. The customer is always the customer. You have to suss that out yourself as the owner, as the entrepreneur, what you're going to act on and what you're not. But you still have to be open to it. And I think the stumbling block is most business owners just aren't even open to it. They don't even try to receive it, because maybe they're resident to say, nah, man, like some people are just unreasonable, and I just don't want to like mold my business to everybody's demands. I get that, and I'm totally on board with that. But you don't want to let that make you delusional that you don't have to at least be open to all of the feedback, and then you decide what you want to act on and what you don't.
I think it was about 5-6 years ago, and it hit me like a steam train, and I started referring to it as bad profits. When we were talking about, that idea of, client fit, and not every client is right. And we started realizing, I'd get this kind of gnawing feeling in my gut as I was talking to someone. And again, as a business owner, you're thinking, forget about it. Revenue. This is what matters, right? We'll sign them on. It'll be okay. And you try and kind of quieten down that gut feeling that you have. And today I'm phenomenally good at it, to the point where we have other agencies that we introduce people to. We have freelancers that we introduce people to. We have virtual assistant platforms that we introduce people to, because I know that it's not a right fit. I know that it's not going to work out well. I know that they're going to be a pain as a client, and therefore I'd much rather say, right, here you go, I'd like to introduce you to X. These guys will be able to help you. It's within your budget, or whatever the issue was that I felt that they needed to address. And I think that's really important for everyone to learn, right? And again, unfortunately, you probably only learn that one by going through it the hard way a few times.
Yeah, I agree. The caveat is, for the freelancer or for the person that's working at a big company that's thinking they're going to start their own small business, and they start off as a one-man band, you really do have to take those jobs. You got to take every job you can get your hands on in the early days, and then learn from them and learn who's a good fit, who's not. I talk to a lot of young entrepreneurs that just getting started, and they don't want to take those dirty jobs. They don't want to take those crappy jobs. And I think in the early days, when you're just a one-man band, and you're just trying to get something going, you have to take whatever work you can get. And then as time goes on, you have 1, 5, 10 employees. You need to keep those customers out of your system because they're toxic. So it's a scale, I think. As you grow, you have almost earned the right to be a little more selective with who you want to work with and partner with. But in the early days, when you're just trying to do 100,000 pounds or dollars the first year, you really have to take whatever you can get.
I agree. That's a great caveat to add to it. Bryan, I could keep chatting to you for hours, I'm sure of it. But before we wrap things up, where's the best place for people to connect with yourself, and also to go check out Greenpal?
Yeah, so just download Greenpal in the App Store or Play Store. You can go to yourgreenpal.com. Also, anybody that wants to get a hold of me, email is actually the best way. Bryan, Bryan, @yourgreenpal.com. I'm wired to love business. I love helping entrepreneurs. I love giving free feedback and advice. So just hit me up.
And I'm going to add a little caveat to this as well, which is, and I've said this a couple of times on the show with other guests that have offered up their email. If you're going to send an email, make it specific, make it to the point. Bryan does also run a company, so he's just as busy as you are, and try and make it something that, he can respond to and give you some help and give you some advice, as opposed to just being, hey, can we talk?
Yeah, exactly. Put me on second or third base where I can help you.
Okay, so for anyone that's not in the USA that hasn't understood that, give him some specifics so that he can bite into it.
Right on.
Bryan, listen, thank you so much, man, and best of luck. You said that you're going to be trying to get into Canada as well, and then I'm hoping that it won't take too long for you to cross the pond and get into Europe as well.
Oh, yes, sir. You better believe it. Give us a couple years.
Love it. Well, listen, man, thank you so much again. And I look forward to watching what you do next.
Hey, thanks, Chris. I appreciate it, man.
The All About Digital Marketing podcast is brought to you by Social Inc., a distributed digital marketing agency specialized in delivering results through online campaigns. Whether it's content marketing, social media marketing, online advertising, or web design, we've got you covered, from strategy through to delivery. If you're struggling with your digital marketing, get in touch today by simply visiting www.socialinc.co.